everyone. Hope you're having a good time. I am okay, not malfunctioning. I thought I was malfunctioning on LinkedIn, but I'm not. I'm here, I'm live, I'm doing it. Welcome in. If you are just stumbling upon me for the first time, I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, executive coach, and I'm glad to meet you. So I'm in the middle of a 30-day live challenge, and there are some topics that I could talk about all day, all the time, repeatedly, and this is one of them. And so tonight I'm going to talk about our comfort zones. And I'll start by explaining what I mean when I say comfort zone, because I think we all have a general idea. But I want to expand on the definition that we think we know, and really talk about what it means to stay in our comfort zones and not sort of delve out into the unknown. So when you think of comfort zone, we think of the place where I feel secure in doing things. And when we think of that, like, take a second and think about, like, what does that mean for you? Is that being a homebody? Is that going out to the movies by yourself? Is that being in a giant group of friends? Is that being only one-on-one with friends or something in the middle? Is it eating only certain foods? Is it, I'll eat anything. I dive into the realms of whatever food is out there. Is that your comfort zone? So everybody's comfort zone is a little bit different. And one of the things that I like to ask my clients pretty early on is, like, what is in their comfort zone? What are they comfortable with? Because some of my clients are super comfortable talking to their manager about what they need. Some of my clients would not do that if it was the last option on earth to ask their supervisor or their CEO or whoever for help. Some people are great delegators. Other people are afraid to ask anybody for help with anything. And so when we think about our comfort zones, we think about, like, what is the known? What do we know? And what do we feel comfortable inside of? And I like to think about this more than a comfort zone as a familiar zone. And here's what I mean by that. If you go to work every day and you have a terrible boss and the pay is awful and your coworkers aren't that nice and the job's so-so, but you've been doing it for a lot of years and so you know how to do it, that might be your comfort zone. It's icky. It doesn't make you happy, but it might be your comfort zone because it is your known. And hey, Christina, and so happy to see you. And Better Nature of Work is here, my old friend. Good to see you too. So when you think about your comfort zone, it's not about the things that you are actually comfortable with. It's more about the things that you know. So if you think about, like, I love to use the metaphor of a blanket. They call it a comforter for a reason, right? So we wrap ourselves in our favorite blanket. And if you think about the things that you love to do and the things that you know how to do, and you imagine that they're in a patchwork comforter, as you go through time, the things that you go through get worn, right? So you start out with this comforter that's super comfortable, and it contains your friends and family that you feel good with. It contains the job that you got that was inside of your comfort zone. It contains the places you're willing to go by yourself. It contains the places you'd rather be with somebody else to go to. And it holds everything together for you. What happens, though, is that we outgrow things, including our comforters. And so that comforter that was so familiar and warm and comfy and cozy becomes a little threadbare in some areas. And we see this especially at work. We see this in our, as we grow in our careers and we get stunted, whether it's that we have bad management or we've outgrown our position and there's just not another position for us, or we have it's just things that are not aligned anymore, things that like really don't resonate with us. And we're still doing them because that's what we know how to do. I see this especially in women, especially in the middle of their careers. So 10, 15, 20, 30 years into your career, you're not happy anymore. You're not comfortable. The part of your comforter that holds career is like all frayed and it doesn't keep you warm anymore. Maybe there's like a full-on hole in that part of your blanket and you just pull it tighter because it's what you know. And so you want to keep at it. You want to keep doing what you know how to do. And we call it our comfort zone because it's what we know. But the reality is it's our safe zone. It's our familiar zone. It's our zone of not having to take risks necessarily. It's our zone of dealing with the devil we know instead of reaching out and working with the devil we don't know. And where I see this come into play with my clients and the people who talk to me about working with me is in delegation, in boundary setting, in taking a stand for ourselves as leaders, in accepting that we haven't been promoted and just sort of living in like, I guess this is it land. This is fine. If you don't know me and my tagline, fine is a trap, is what I stand for. We settle in the middle of our careers for what we think is okay. It's fine. And it's not actually fine. We're real tired of it, but we don't know what else to do. And so I actually call this not your comfort zone, it's your familiar zone. And it actually gets less and less comfortable, but because it happens progressively, we don't quite notice it. Like if you went to your first day of work as a VP in an organization, and on that day, you were belittled, you were delegated the wrong things, you were told you didn't have authority over things, you had your people interrupting you in meetings. On your very first day, you'd start looking for another job immediately. But typically that stuff happens progressively. That stuff happens in like little bits and pieces. And we don't notice it happening. We call it a bad day. We call it a bad week. We call it things are hard at work. But we don't necessarily see that we have the right and responsibility to go do something else. So because we get so long-term used to the safety of knowing what's wrong, of knowing what we hate about our job or our career or our boss or ourselves at work, the way we do or don't set boundaries, the way we do or don't become people pleasers and workaholics and be in the zone of doing more for others than we would ever think about doing for ourselves. We're actually sitting in the I don't know what else to do zone. And in the I don't know what else to do zone, we think that this is the best that it gets. We start to gaslight ourselves. We start to become convinced that we're lucky to have this job or this career at all. We start to think that we could never get anything else, or that if we want to switch companies or jobs, we'll have to take a step down. We'll have to make less money. We think that if we stand up for ourselves in a way we haven't before, in trying to set boundaries or telling our leadership what we need or telling our team we need them to take on more, that we're going to get backlash for it. So none of it actually feels comfortable or even good. It's just what we know, and we don't know what else to do. And so when I work with clients, one of their fears when they come and start working with me is that I'm going to make them leap out of their comfort zone, right? And if you think of a time when you had to step outside of your comfort zone. Usually this comes in the form of emergencies or surprise confrontations, where you have no choice, right? Something is like legitimately on fire. You have to step out of your comfort zone and handle it. Those are the like forced jumps out of your comfort zone. When clients come to me, it's because they're ready to start stepping out of their comfort zone. And the fear that comes in when I talk to potential clients is that I'm going to ask them to do too much at once, and that I'm going to make them, and I get this as like, quote, make them, Lauren, I'm afraid that you're going to make me do things that I'm so uncomfortable with that I'm just going to want to run away. And then I'm not going to want to do the work. And then I will be paying you for nothing. And that's just not how it works, because it can't. When we are stepping out of our comfort zones, we have to like dip our toe out of the blanket, feel the cold air on our little tootsies before we can decide that we want more, that we want different. So with my clients, I have had clients who take 5 minutes to have a cup of coffee with no interruptions. I have had clients who, when they end a phone call, their thing to do is stand up, walk over to a window, take 3 deep breaths, and then go back and sit down, because they don't feel like they ever take breaks at work. So we're not talking about ripping the comforter off of you with you like naked and out to the world saying like, here I am, world, it's all over for you suckers. We're talking about making small changes, dipping your toe in the water outside of your comfort zone, so that you see that when you take these low risk actions, these low risk boundary sets, or low risk delegation, or low risk asking your senior leader for something or your peer for something, that you see that it works or that it doesn't. Usually it does. And I roll my eyes at that, because I get scared too. And I love to stay in my comfort zone. And when I try to leap out of my comfort zone, I immediately retreat, and retract my goal. And I don't want to do it, because like it feels like too big and too much. When I start small and I do little commitments to change, little commitments to getting towards what I want, that's when I give myself the opportunity to start stepping out of my comfort zone, prove the concept that it works to step outside of my comfort zone, and then try something else. And if I do it in small steps, and if my clients do it in small steps, first of all, we start to see that it's working. And then we get braver about what we're willing to try. And secondly, we start to see that people aren't as put off about us trying things as we think they're going to be. Like, there's this picture we have in our head, I think, and I see this with almost every client when they start doing boundary setting and self-development at work. There's this assumption that we're going to be called out on the audacity of it all. What usually happens is that people are like, oh, okay. I've had clients who've stopped doing reports they were doing for years because they were told to do them years ago. Nobody ever reads them, and they skip them 1 week, or they skip one part of one week, and nobody notices. And then they've proved the concept that they're doing work, sometimes hours of work, that nobody's paying attention to, and their time could be better spent. I have also worked with clients who have tried just say no twice today. It can be to tiny little things. Doesn't have to be big sweeping changes to your work product or how you do work. It could be, hey, Lauren, do you have a few minutes? I actually don't right now, but I can talk to you at 3 o'clock. Can you come back then? Or can I come to you at 3 o'clock? Easy peasy. You're not saying no, actually, for the long term. You're saying no in this moment. And that's a really low risk kind of no to put out there. Ultimately, what happens is My clients get more and more excited because when we start setting boundaries, when we start reaching outside of our comfort zone, outside of our warm blanket that we actually now notice is totally threadbare and it's not what we want anymore, that if we do it in really small steps, we can actually make some pretty sustainable, long-term, bigger changes. The challenge that we give ourselves as high achievers and as people pleasers is that we want to do it all at once. So I have a sign up on my wall that says, what is the step before that? Because I do it too. If I want to do something new, like go live for 30 days, which I'm doing right now, my brain is like, prepare all 30 days, have talking points for every day, schedule each one of them in advance, write up all of the blurbs about them before you get started. Well, I would never do it. That's too much all at once. And it's also like not the way I work. I work so much more intuitively. And so when I started looking at this 30-day challenge for myself of going live for 30 days straight, not only did I not schedule them, I'm just doing them. I'm just making sure I'm doing them every day. That's my commitment. That's my one step. Every day I will go live at some point in the day. And if I haven't done it by like 5 o'clock at night, I'm setting a reminder on my Amazon Echo so that I get a reminder at 8:30 if I haven't done it, so that I make sure to do it. So that's my step 2. Do it. If I haven't done it by like 5 o'clock, set myself a timer or a reminder so that I do make sure to do it before I go to bed because I'm committed to it every day. And then do it. And what I am learning is if I have those 3 steps, I'm not overwhelming myself by counting how many days I have left to keep going live in a row. I'm not overwhelming myself by saying, these are all of my topics for all 30 days. I am intuitively thinking about what do I want to do and how do I want to do it? And tomorrow I'm going to talk in more detail about what's the step before that. And this is another way in which I'm being kind to myself in doing this 30-day goal, which is that I'm coming up with my topic during my talk, right? Like I could talk about the what's before that step all day long. And I don't want to blend it into this topic and be done with it. So I'll talk about it tomorrow. So come back tomorrow for my topic of what's before that and not building all of the steps into one insurmountable lump of a mountain that you're not going to want to climb. And that I think is the big challenge with high achievers is that when we think we're going to dive out of our comfort zone, we think we have to like dive into icy waters, just cold. We just have to go and do it or we're never going to do it. And we've proven that because that's how we make sure that our lives are full and complete and we're in high achievement. And so instead of breaking it down into small steps, which makes us feel like a beginner, it makes us feel like we're going to move too slowly. It makes us feel like we're probably going to fail or fall off the wagon at some point and not be doing the work. We either dive in head first and do it all, or we just don't do it at all. And that's how so many of us who are high achievers get stuck in this familiar zone, this I don't know what else to do zone, this comfort zone, this safe zone that actually doesn't feel comfortable, safe, or fun anymore. And I say that you have the right and responsibility to find joy in your career. You have the time for it. You don't have to figure out today how you're going to have the time for it. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week when I started being coached. I was also coaching on the side when I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. And when I hired my own coach, the first thing I told her was I didn't have time to be coached. And she said, if you say so, that's true. And she was right. After I got like real mad at her, I realized she was right. Like we cater to the things around us without thinking about ourselves. And it keeps us in our comfort zone. It keeps us in this same loop of the same place over and over and over. And this is whether we're in corporate lives, whether we're in teacher lives, healthcare lives, whether we're entrepreneurs. We find a comfort zone. We find a space that we know and that we know how to do, and that has worked for us at some point when we did get brave enough to jump out of our comfort zone. Whether it was because we were forced to, we lost a job, we got laid off, we took off for maternity leave, we took off to take care of a family member, to be a stay-at-home parent, whatever it is. And then we have to dive back in, right? That gets us out of our comfort zone. But what I'm talking about now is that as a grown human who's been in the work world for some time, you have so much more choice than you give yourself credit for in whether to step out of your comfort zone and how to step out of your comfort zone. And the thing to know is that you are not in it alone. You do not have to do it by yourself. Nobody has told you that you're not allowed to ask for help except for you. And I've lived that, and my clients have lived that. So if you are in a place right now where this is resonating with you and you're hearing, I want to step out of my comfort zone and I don't know how to do it, set up a strategy call with me. Set up a time to talk to me. DM me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram and let me know, what do you want to do? What do you want to do that's outside of your comfort zone, and what is scaring you out of doing it? And we can have a conversation about this. And there's no blame. There's no judgment in my conversations because I've been there. I lived a life where I loved my career for 15 of the 20 plus years I was in it. And then I fell off a cliff and I didn't like my career anymore. And I thought I was just stuck with it, even though I was coaching other people to get them out of the rut that they felt like they were in. So we're not meant to do it by ourselves. I am a hyper independent, high achieving people pleaser. I'm probably not typically what you think of when you think of somebody who goes for coaching. But all of my clients are also high achievers. All of my clients also have had this path in life where they've helped everybody else with stuff, and they have thought that they were on their own if they wanted to figure anything out for themselves. So I'm going to leave you with that tonight, and I will be back tomorrow to talk about the what's before that step and how to start thinking about breaking your goals down or breaking what you want to escape from down into smaller steps so that it's not quite so overwhelming. Thanks so much for being with me, and have an amazing night. Bye.